All right. It's time for Buckeye Grove Instant Access.
It's about time.
With the latest breaking news, analysis, and much, much more from around the world of Ohio State. Brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com and the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network.
You're so money and you don't even know it.
Let's move quickly and hand it off to our host, Kevin Noon.
It's time to start running!
Hey, welcome to a special edition of the BIA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. I'll be joined with Mark Gibler, our great recruiting analyst, here in a second. As you can imagine, we are doing a special podcast because of the commitment of Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman out of Houston, Texas. Big news for the Buckeyes on the class of 2021. And, without further ado, let's just jump right to Mark. And, Mark, why don't you tell us about Donovan as a player?
Yeah, definitely one of the top offensive linemen in the country in the 2021 class. A kid who plays with great toughness. Also a technically advanced kid for this stage. A lot of young linemen are with projects. Donovan is a pretty advanced guy. Very impressive over the summer. Had a chance to see him at several national camps, the Rival Challenge, the opening. Just someone who competes extremely hard, and I think will give them a lot of versatility. Ohio State likes to play their 5 best offensive linemen, so they like versatile guys who can kind of slot in at different spots to make that possible. And Donovan, I've seen him play left tackle, left guard, and right guard. So he can play just about anywhere. Probably wouldn't be a center at Ohio State, but outside of that, to play guard or tackle. So pretty huge pickup. Beat a lot of national programs for him, and big recruiting win.
Yeah, he has a grandmother that lives here in Ohio. It always did kind of seem, though, that, Ohio State was kind of a passing fancy, and that, it was going to be hard to get him out of the South. And then, lo and behold, Ohio State strings some visits together and does a good job with him. Yeah,
they hung in there. They were kind of in his top group the whole way, and you knew they'd be a factor, but again, with him being from Houston, that's been an area that's been tough to tackle for them over the years, where they've found themselves right there in the top 3 or 4 for guys, but haven't always been able to get the commitment or whatever. But had a really good spring game visit that kind of picked things up for him, and then came back during the season. The Penn State game, and really at that point knew that's what he was going to be doing at that point, and has kind of waited to share the news until today, obviously. But it's a huge recruiting win, and actually, ironically, you mentioned the grandmother in Cincinnati. His parents are actually both from Ohio. They met at Miami of Ohio, so there's a lot of family connection to the state, and should make things a little bit easier for them travel-wise. And had he gone, somewhere else, like a Stanford or somewhere else he was considering, that was kind of out of the region.
I'm not going to ask you to look into the future on questions that you can't necessarily answer, but when you recruit out of state, and we'll talk about Ohio State's 2021 class in general on the other side of the break, but you have to keep recruiting these guys, all the way until the point that they sign. It's a very different world today. I mean, but then again, national recruiting is national recruiting. Is he a player that, is going to have to, in your opinion, that they're going to have to really stay on top of? I mean, I had the opportunity on Southern Swing to meet Donovan. Seems to be a real down-to-earth kid. Or is this one that you think, we always sit there and we rank these out-of-state recruits as, most likely to have late drama versus, the locks. Where do you see Donovan on that scale?
Yeah, I mean, I spent quite a bit of time with him and his dad in San Antonio this past week, and we kind of talked about privately just the whole recruiting process and things like that, and it felt to me like a family that really is prepared and ready to make a decision, and really would prefer the recruiting process to end. They went on a lot of visits over the past 24 months. They kind of planned to give an early commitment so that they could get all this out of the way. They've made their travel arrangements to make their unofficial visits, and I just got a very much of a sense of this is it. So, barring anything on Ohio State's end that would, cause him to look around over the next 12 months, this seems about as solid as you can get for a kid from Texas. I mean, it's, you never say anything's 100%, even from an Ohio kid with 12 months to go, but this is not one that looks like there's going to be any drama.
Obviously, a very big win for Ryan Day, Greg Studoira, and the rest of the coaching staff. We'll talk about the class of 2021 here after a quick message from our sponsor.
Hague Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's HAGUE H2O.com.
Welcome back to the BIA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined with Mark Gibler here on the day of Donovan Jackson's commitment to Ohio State. A good mixture of in-state and out-of-state kids. A pair of offensive linemen with Jackson and Ben Chrisman. Mark, what's your overall view on how this class is coming together as we are still sitting here in January?
Yeah, this is about as good of a start as you could hope for, I think. You've got the top two players in Ohio, in my opinion, with Jack Sawyer and Ben Chrisman. You get some national guys. Donovan Jackson's obviously a top 100 kid out of Texas. You get a kid like Kyle McCord out of Philly, a top 100 guy. So just a great mix. They've addressed quarterback. They've got a pass rusher. They've got two excellent offensive linemen. So, I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about getting after the quarterback, playing the quarterback position, and protecting the quarterback. And so they've addressed all three of those things to some extent already. Definitely, there will be some more things to do on the offensive and defensive lines as this class kind of comes together, but it's a great start. It's a great group of guys. They've all, talked to many of them several times and built good relationships with a lot of those guys, and they all seem kind of focus-driven kids. I think it's a great core to start the class.
Without naming any names, we don't want to get to that point yet, but what would you say is the one or two major positions of emphasis? I mean, I know that the class of 2020 isn't done yet per se with signing day still a few weeks away, the original February signing day where Ohio State could maybe add, but if you had to really drill down on what's most important for them to address in 21, what would that be?
Yeah, there's a few positions they're going to have to address. Obviously, running back's been a bit of a roller coaster here, maybe the past 12 to 18 months. That's certainly going to need to be addressed with probably two guys. They are in on a lot of guys there, so that's going to be an interesting thing this spring as official visits start being made and guys start kind of narrowing their focus. It's going to be very interesting to watch that all play out with all the candidates they have in play right now. Obviously, they do have Jack Sawyer, which is about as good as it gets as a defensive end commit, but they're going to want to continue to build on that. They're going to need another pass rusher. They're going to need to start replenishing the interior of the defensive line here a little bit. Probably going to want to get a big one tech. They don't really have a ton of guys in the lower classes there. 2020 was very defensive end and three tech heavy. So they're probably going to want to get a one tech out of this class and, continue to, build along the offensive line. Obviously, they're off to a great start there. And then, another big need is going to be the secondary because now, even with Sean Wade coming back, obviously he's going to be out of eligibility probably here in the next year or two, or I guess he'll have another year in theory, but I think everyone can kind of see the writing on the wall that this will be it for him after this upcoming season. So they're going to have to replenish the secondary. So those are, there's still some, class is only, maybe a third full, maybe a little bit more than a third full. So there's a lot of work to do still.
Well, definitely exciting times for the Buckeyes and the recruiting staff. I talked about in 3-2-1 recently that I think a lot of Ryan Day's critics out there were saying that, maybe he's just carrying on the coattails of what Urban Meyer's done. But, this is really his first his first full class to where these are not, a lot of these kids did not necessarily have a lot of contact with the previous staff and whatnot. So, I mean, my last point that I want to make on here is, Ryan Day's already shown that he can get it accomplished on the field. And he seems to really have assembled a staff, and, as he's kind of rebuilding it here over the next couple of weeks with a couple of departures, seems to have a staff that's really connecting with these kids and has kept Ohio State as a national power.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good blend right now. You have your young guys like a Brian Hartline, who's got a lot of energy, relates really well to the kids. Kind of a recent name, not too far removed from the NFL. So you have, a young guy like that. You have a veteran like Larry Johnson, who instantly commands the respect of every defensive line prospect that he speaks with. So he brings, all of his experience to the table. So you go back and you get Al Washington, kind of more of a Hartline, young, energetic guy, and then you bounce right back and you have a Kevin Wilson with all of his experience on offense. So it's a really good mix right now. Everyone seems to kind of be a cohesive unit in terms of everyone being on the same page, and just that good mix of veterans and young guys and energy. And then Ryan Day, I think, was probably their best recruiter when he was an assistant on the staff. It's certainly, if not the best, one of the 2 or 3 best. So he has always been a good recruiter, and learning under Urban Meyer for a few years on how to handle recruiting from the head coaching position, I'm sure was extremely valuable to him. So there's no reason this can't continue to have, there's no reason they can't continue to stack these top 3 type of recruiting classes together.
Good news to all Ohio State fans. I want to thank Mark for joining us here on this special edition of the BIA podcast. If you want to get all that recruiting scoop, be sure to keep it locked in here to BuckeyeGrove.com. Get all of the great analysis from Mark Gibler and Alex Sleitman and everybody else that's part of the team. And we want to thank you for listening to the show, and we will catch up with you very soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with Buckeye Grove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game. Exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.